Hello, everybody, and welcome to day two of CSW Group's Future Proof Your Career series of webinars. This is a series of webinars that we are running every day at 10 o'clock this week, and we'll be covering different aspects of career development and employability. So today, I will be delivering a talk called Adapt to Survive, Getting Resilient for a Zigzag Career. So this is what I'm hoping to cover today. So what I'll be talking about is something called resilience, and this might be a word you've heard of in different sort of situations, but we'll be trying to define what we mean by that and why it's important in our career development. We'll also be looking at something called mindset, in particular the difference between what we call growth mindset and what we also call a fixed mindset. We'll think about practicing ways of challenging unhelpful thoughts, particularly the kind of thoughts that can hamper us, trip us up, and get in the way of us moving forward in our learning or our careers, and how to get what we want out of life. And finally, there'll be a few suggestions of where to go to seek further support if you need it. Okay, so why are we focusing on resilience and mindset when we're here to talk about careers and think about career development? Well, actually, if you look at the kind of skills that employers tell us that they're most commonly looking for, you might be thinking, well, that could be things like ICT skills, perhaps it's sort of other more technical skills. In actual fact, resilience comes quite high up the list. It's a thing that lots of employers in most contexts do look for in their employees. But they'll look for other skills too. They all appreciate good communication skills. And that's verbal skills like I'm using at the moment, could be text-based communication, all sorts of types of communication these days. They appreciate effective leadership and management skills, being able to plan your work, being able to research things effectively, self-management, being able to manage our own tasks, being able to manage our own emotions and our thinking. And also quite a commonly looked for one is teamwork and interpersonal skills. Now that list there was compiled by a website called Prospects, which is a really good careers website. I'd recommend that to all of you. And this is feedback that prospects gain by talking to lots and lots of employers. So these are genuinely things that will help you in your career if you can develop them. And I would suggest actually that all of them, even though we may have strengths in one area or possibly less strong in other areas, they are all things that we can develop and do something about. But today, these are the two we're going to be looking at mostly, resilience, and this crosses over, I would say, into self-management too. So what do we mean by resilience? So we've got a word cloud here, which has lots and lots of different ways in which people understand resilience. Could be strength, could be agility, could be overcoming obstacles, could be being flexible. But it can actually mean lots and lots of different things. Have a look at these images here. Do any of these resonate with you as an image that encapsulates what resilience means? Does it mean physical strength, working with others to physically overcome things? Is it just developing our own physical fitness and our own bodily strength? Is it succeeding when all of life seems to be against us? Is it overcoming obstacles, maybe much like that little plant that's creeping up between the cracks in that pavement? Or staying firmly rooted when it feels like things are against us too, much like that tree that's bent sideways but still rooted there in the ground? And it can also, I guess, mean the qualities we need to climb a mountain, whether that's a literal mountain or just a project or something we want to achieve for ourselves, that will help us get to the top and achieve what we want to achieve. Well, none of these images are wrong, and resilience will mean different things to different people. But today, this is the definition that we're going to go with. And this is a definition that I've taken from Psychology Today. Whoops, I'll go back a bit. And it says that resilience is a psychological quality that allows some people to be knocked down by the adversities of life and come back at least as strong as before. So rather than letting difficulties, traumatic events, or failure, all things that all of us experience from time to time, rather than letting these things overcome them and drain their willpower and their resolve, highly resilient people will find a way to change course, emotionally heal, and continue moving towards their goals. So it's not about being tough, and it's not about being hard. It's not just about being physically strong. Yeah, this is a thing we can all develop in different ways. But what's career resilience then? Okay, so resilience is an important quality in life in general, but when it's about our careers, when does it matter then? So I've got a few quotes now which cover different aspects of this. So this quote is about keeping going when things don't go according to plan. We persevere, we stick at things, we can adapt, even when things seem to go awry or go wrong. It's coping successfully with change or misfortune. I think in the context of what we've all been going through with COVID-19, I think some of this is quite relevant, because a lot of people have had change and quite tragic misfortune in some cases. But it's the ability to keep going despite all of that. And also, if there is disruption, if there is significant change, even things that are outside our control, it's finding the learning in that. Where can I learn things? Where can I grow? Even though something may have apparently been difficult or even tragic in my life, how can I pick myself up, learn what I need to learn, and keep going forward? Okay, so when is career resilience important? So there's a Q&A box. You can all type your thoughts into that, and I will go through them, and we will happily share them. Have a think. When do we need resilience in our careers? So have a think. If you're watching this with somebody else, have a talk to them, and type any responses you've got into the Q&A, and then we'll have a look at them together. Okay, just a few more seconds for any other responses. Great. Okay, we've got a couple of really good suggestions here. So one person has said threat of redundancy and economic changes, and I totally agree with that. Particularly if we think at the moment with COVID, as well as the most serious threat that this has posed, and that's the health risks that it's exposed us all to. Sadly, a lot of people have experienced great disruption and even job loss at the moment. So I completely agree with that. And our economy can go through ups and downs as well. So that's definitely something, a time when we will need our resilience for sure. And we also have another suggestion here, which is when you're unsuccessful in job applications, absolutely. I would love to be able to say to all of you that you will all succeed with every job you ever apply to in life. But that's not always the case. Certainly hasn't been the case with me. And that's quite right. You know, that's a time when we need to look at how well we did, listen to feedback. It may be that there was something that we could have done to improve our chances of getting the job, or it may have been that the competition just was what it was, and maybe the next time will be the time when we're successful. So really good answers. Thank you for those. So when is it important then? So we've got a little diagram here, which I'm suggesting to you shows a couple of different ways of thinking about your career. So the fiction of a career is that it's a nice, neat, straight line. That I finish school or college or university or my apprenticeship, whatever it is that whichever training or education route you choose, and I'll start my job, I'll do it for most of my life, maybe get promoted along the way, and then there will be retirement at the end. Now that's a fairly traditional view of a career, and it's less relevant these days, if it ever was in fact relevant at all. In reality, our careers are most often like that squiggle. So there'll be unexpected turns. There can be big economic downturns. Something like COVID comes along. We thought we had a job, all of a sudden we don't. Or indeed, we might work for 10 years in one area and then one day wake up and decide, you know what, I'd like a career change. I'm going to retrain. I'll go back to college or university or even do an apprenticeship later in life, and I will learn new skills and take my career in a different direction. Because jobs are rarely for life these days, and most of us will have many, and they are sometimes unexpected career changes. There are different estimates for how many job changes we'll all go through. Some say anywhere between 15 and 30 for this generation. But yeah, most of us will go through more than one job change, possibly quite a few. When we're in work, there are other pressures too. There are deadlines, there are responsibilities. We have to work with others. We may have to work alongside people that we don't get along with, quite strong or difficult personalities. So even when we get our job, there is still a certain basic level on which we need to be resilient. And if all of you think about your experiences of school and college, you can probably recognize times when you've needed to use exactly the same kind of skills. Same will be true in the workplace, for sure. And then I mentioned earlier, learning doesn't just stop at age 16 or 18 or 22. For a lot of us, learning will be for life. Jobs will change, technology will come in, tasks will change, and we will need to adapt and change with them. So most of us will need to train and re-educate ourselves to adapt to this and to keep ourselves fresh and to keep gaining the skills that we need in order to thrive. So having thought a bit about resilience, we're now going to shift and look at something called growth mindset. And this is something that it's something that if we understand, it can help us to build the resilience that we need. Now, this person here is very famous. Her name is Professor Carol Dweck, and she is the person who came up with this idea of growth mindset. So we have a quote from her, and it says that in a growth mindset, challenges are exciting rather than threatening. So basically, a person with growth mindset, when confronted with a challenge, goes, well, rather than thinking, oh, I'm going to reveal my weaknesses and maybe be defeated by them, they say, wow, here's a chance for me to grow. Could be exactly the same situation that might defeat another person, but it's all about the mind that we bring to it and how we react to it. And what she discovered is that is something we can all do something about. Here's a little image to contrast what she calls growth mindset with the opposite, which is fixed mindset. So on the left-hand side, you can see quite a few statements that kind of describe what a person with growth mindset might say to themselves, or the kind of ways in which they might approach problems and difficulties. So as we just said, failure can be an opportunity to grow. I can learn to do anything I want. So rather than assume that my learning is fixed and I cannot learn anymore, actually that's something I can keep building on. Challenges will help me grow. My effort and attitude determine my abilities. They're not fixed, they're not stuck, they're not made of stone, they're things I can improve and change. If I get feedback, that's great, that's constructive because I can learn from it. If I see other people's success, that's inspiring to me. And I like to try new things. I'm not scared of it. This is good. This is something that excites me, and I can use it to grow. So the opposite, the fixed mindset, would see failure. Failure is evidence that my abilities are limited. And the assumption is that I can't do much about that. Either I'm good at something or I'm not. It's a bit black and white. There's nothing in between. My abilities are fixed and unchanging. I don't like challenge. That's difficult. Try to avoid that. I see my potential as predetermined and fixed. If I get frustrated, well, I'll give up. And if I get feedback and criticism, well, that's a disaster because it's a personal attack. And I'll just stick to what I know. Now, I will say to you, we have, all of us, I would wager, been in both of these states at different times in our life, and also somewhere in between. It is very much a spectrum, this, and Dweck's point is that we do move around in between it. But this is just a good way of sort of summarizing what she means by these two types of mindset. So here we have something that you can all use to evaluate your own mindset. Now, this can be shared with all of you. So at the end of the presentation, I'm going to give you the career question email address, and you can send me an email and I will happily send this to you. Alternatively, if you know how to do a screen capture, you can do that now and print it out, and then this is something you can do for yourselves. But mindset is something we can measure. It's not a mystery. It's a thing that we can very, very quickly and easily measure to see where our mindset is at the moment. So this is a type of a self-evaluation thing. There are 8 questions there. And as you can see, what this asks you to do is to tick a response. So, for example, that first one there, intelligence is something people are born with that can't be changed. What you're asked to do is to indicate how strongly you agree or disagree with that question, and the same applies for all the other ones. So when you have a chance, I'd like you all to have a go at this and see what result you come out with. In the bottom left-hand side, you will see that there are roughly 4 responses there. You might come out with a strong fixed mindset, could be a fixed mindset but with some growth traits, or it could be a growth mindset with some fixed traits, or a very strong growth mindset. And if I show you one that's completed, this is a person who tossed up all the scores, and you'll see that each answer conveys a certain number of points. You add it all up, they've come up with a 20, and that came within strong growth mindset. So do this for yourself, and whatever you come up with, that will be useful information. Because if it is showing you that to some degree there are some fixed traits in your thinking, that's telling you that there may be some areas where you need to think about and think about adjusting your mindset. And that's something we're going to look at next. Okay, it's fine that we can see where our mindset is, but what do we do about that? So I'm going to tell you something about what I call self-talk. Now, this is a really, really good, practical, simple way that anyone can use to change their fixed mindset. Here we have like a wheel or a cycle that shows us how our thoughts link to our feelings, the actions we then carry out based on the feelings, and then the results. All of these things are interrelated. Now, drawing on a little bit of insight from something called CBT, some of you might know that, cognitive behavioral therapy, we're going to be thinking about the thoughts particularly, because what CBT would say, and Carol Dweck would agree with this, the thoughts are the bit that we can most easily shift. So if I approach a task and I'm finding it difficult and I think, oh, I can't do this, well, I'm going to feel quite down about myself, probably. It's likely that I will put less effort in, or it might be that I will become stressed and become less able to focus, and then the results might seem to prove what my initial thought was. However, if I tackled that differently and thought, okay, well, I'm trying something new today, it's tricky, but if I'm patient, I can learn how to do it, and maybe if I'm open to asking others for help, I might feel a little bit more in control of the situation. I may notice that my actions are a little bit more considered and a little bit more patient, and the results are more productive. So I'm going to show you how this can work. So self-talk is a little bit like a little voice whispering in our ears, or something sitting on our shoulder, sort of talking to us and kind of reinforcing these messages we have inside us that really do affect how we feel about situations. The trick in challenging this self-talk is not to replace it with something unrealistically positive, but something realistically positive, something practical. So I'll show you how this can work. So we may have a feeling like, oh, I'll never get a good job. I would wager there are some people who are thinking that at the moment, and not entirely through their own fault, because they have lost their job through the COVID situation. Competition for jobs has shot up, and they probably are finding it a lot harder than they ever have done before. That would be a very understandable thought to have. So we could replace it with something positive. Now, the unrealistic thought would be, I can get any job in the world I like with no effort whatsoever. I mean, that would seemingly sound positive, but I think if we're being honest, that wouldn't be very realistic. Instead, we might reframe it as something like this. It may take time, we could probably add, and also effort, but eventually I will find a good job. The thought of being really disappointed in myself, maybe beating myself up. I speak with good experience here, folks. This is something I do sometimes. Rather than sort of replace it with something unrealistic like, you know, I have no reason whatsoever to be disappointed with my actions. It could be, well, I'm constantly learning and improving. And that last one there, well, I just can't finish anything. I've got all these tasks piling up around me. How on earth am I going to do this? We could approach it with something practical, like I will approach things one task at a time. So that's basically how this works. And the trick is to practice this, and particularly to practice this when you're in a situation where you're not immediately being triggered. If you try and do it when the trigger happens, you'll find it a lot harder. So if you do it as a bit like a daily practice, over time, I would wager a lot of you would find that this will work. So, some homework for you. It's nice homework, I promise. This is a little task for you all to try and help you build your own growth mindset. So what I would like you to do, if you can, is to notice whenever you get that sort of negative self-talk, as I'm calling it, and keep a diary. Any thoughts, any feelings that pop up, particularly in response to specific situations, try and write them down if you can, tap them into your phone, keep them somewhere. And then have a go at writing them down and rewording them more positively, but realistically. So make them manageable and achievable. And then every day, visualize the sort of change you want to happen with those thoughts. And the trick is to write them down or repeat them to really embed this as a habit, because negative self-talk is habitual. That's why it's strong. It's because we almost keep fueling it by repeating it. So if we want to engender, or we want to fuel something more positive, again, that's got to be a habit too. Okay? So, as you will have noticed, I mean, a lot of what we've been talking about touches on those times in life when things are tricky, when we might feel triggered, we might even feel distressed. So it is good to know when we can go and seek support. For sure, I've been talking about ways you can all help yourselves, but we all need the help of others from time to time. So we've got a few suggestions here, and these are all different sources of support that any of you can draw on if you need it. So your GP and your school could be a good first line of support, possibly. We have Childline there. So they offer a wonderful service to children and young people who are feeling distressed. Kooth is a lovely website which deals with mental health. There are counsellors you can talk to online. There is a lovely forum you can use to talk to other young people. Young Minds is a charity that looks at the mental health of young people and offers support in that area too. And I've also got there our own CSW group website, which has lots of kind of career-related support and information for young people, because there's a lot of lots and lots of options out there. It can be pretty overwhelming and confusing, and you know, do have a look at our website, because there's lots and lots of useful stuff there that might help. So thank you, all of you, for your time today. We have a little bit of time for any questions. So if there are any questions that any of you would like to ask, feel free to take a moment to type it into the chat box, and I'll happily deal with them now. Okay, so no questions coming through. But if anything comes up, or if anything has come up and you don't want to ask it here live, if you want to pose it to us through our, oh, actually we do have one. Will we get copies of the slides? Yes, Jan. So what I'm going to do in a second is to give you our email address, and I will happily give you the slides and also the growth mindset self-evaluation sheet too. So here are our contact details. So the inbox that we've developed for this week is careerquestion@cswgroup.co.uk. If you email that email address, I'll more than happily send you the slides for today and the self-evaluation sheet. And you may then, you know, take that away and use it however you see fit. If you'd also like to follow CSW Group on social media, there is our LinkedIn page as well as our Twitter feed. Great. So thank you very much for your time, everybody. I hope that's been of use to you. These webinars will be every day this week at 10 o'clock. They're also being recorded and uploaded to CSW Group's YouTube channel. So if you know of people who weren't able to make it today, do let them know that they're going to be uploaded, and they'll be freely available to everybody from that point. So thank you very much.